Alright, this is going to be the last video that finishes this off. I'm just going to go over these bottom 7 problems where again there's 2 steps. You're going to see some of them they cancel out just like they did on the previous video, and some of them they don't, and you have to work it. When in doubt, always work inside to out. Alright, now this first one that I start off with, it actually looks a lot like this one from the previous video. And this is one where I said whenever you have the trig function, it's inverse. Really for this, for tangent and arctangent, they're always going to cancel out. Now this one, I don't know what that answer is because it's not a special angle. You know, it's like saying tangent of what angle gives us -5. I don't know what that is, but remember tangent, the graph of it's an S-curve. So really this could be anything. I could make that 5 million. These are always going to cancel each other out. It's going to be -5. It's only when these are switched, like this one, is where you kind of have to think a little bit and work inside to out. Okay, and 2 is kind of an example. These are switched. The arc sign's on the outside, so I'm going to work with this on the inside. So sine of 5 pi over 3, that's in the 4th quadrant, so it's negative, and that's going to be -√3 over 2. So let's put that in there, -√3 over 2. And you're going to take the arc sine of it. All right. So this is going to be one where it's not going to cancel out. And really, because this 5 pi over 3 is not in the range, remember for arc sine, the range is -pi over 2 to pi over 2. All right. All right, so if I take the arc sine of that, and it's -√3 over 2. Since it's negative, it's in the 4th quadrant. And it is, I make the angle negative, it's -pi over 3. So basically -pi over 3 is coterminal with that. All right, and that's the answer that the calculator would give you. Now 3, I'll star this. This one is a little bit tricky. This is one where you're thinking, all right, it's going to be a lot like these ones. They're going to cancel out, and it's just going to be 2. But through a little curveball in there, inverse cosine of 2 is like saying cosine of theta equals 2. These would only cancel out as long as that number is in between -1 and 1, because that's the range for cosine, because eventually we're taking cosine of it. There's no angle that gives us cosine to be 2. Remember, x can never be bigger than 1 in the unit circle, so this we're going to say is no solution, or I have their null set. Now this one, 4, this is going to be one where it cancels out because that's in the range for sine. It's in between -1 and 1. Even though I don't know what the exact angle is that gives us -0.4, you know, whatever angle it gives us, it's going to give us an angle in the 4th quadrant. When I take the sine of it, it's going to give me back the same thing. So this is going to be -0.4. All right. And then the last three, you can see how I have completely different functions. So they're not going to cancel out because they're completely different functions. So you have to work inside to out. So if I just work inside, tangent of pi over 4, well, those are the √2 over 2's divided by √2 over 2. This is 1. And then when we take the inverse sine of that, well, remember the range for inverse sine is -pi over 2 to pi over 2. And it's only, y only equals 1 at pi over 2. So that's our answer. Okay, for number 6, when I do inverse tangent of -√3, that has to be in the 4th quadrant, and it's got to be a negative angle. Remember, tangent's y over x, and this winds up giving us -pi over 3. And remember, if you did y over x at -pi over 3, it's going to give you this -√3. And then if you just take the sine of -pi over 3, your answer is going to be the y value at -pi over 3, which is going to be -√3 over 2. And that's the answer. Again, we're only getting one answer. Okay, this, right, I work in to out. So sine of -pi over 6, that's in the 4th quadrant. And the y value at -pi over 6 is -1/2. And then when I take the inverse cosine of it, now inverse cosine, I look at the top half of the unit circle, first and second quadrant. Cosine's negative in the second quadrant, so I'll put second quadrant. And x is negative 1/2 at 2 pi over 3. Again, just one answer. All right, so these take 2 steps. When in doubt, you can always do what's in parentheses first and then do what's on the outside second. You're going to see how some of them they cancel out and some of them they don't.